This is Football Primetime. I'm your host, AJ Dean, and with me, Brett Fitzpatrick. Doing things a little bit differently this week. Billy is taking the day off for reasons unbeknownst to us. So we have Sam
just
in the
us.
back. It is just us. We have Sam in the background producing for us. So thank you, Sam. Appreciate that, buddy. So Brett, a little different of a show. We had a pretty good wild card weekend. In my eyes, at least.
Define good,
A
because
lot of points.
if you were looking
there was
for
a lot of points.
a lot of points. If you were looking for a good, close football game, that didn't happen all weekend. I guess
There were some
we had
blowouts.
one, but everything, it was pretty up and down. Where would you like to start going through all this? I guess before we get into the scores, I guess we could talk a little bit about the coaching carousel that is in full swing as the season is over. Obviously, the big news almost right after last week's show, Gerard Mayo announced as the Patriots head coach. Billy was right in his call on that one, so I have to give him props for that. What did you think about this move?
I liked it. I thought that the Patriots would have interviewed some head coaching candidates. To be honest, I don't hate the pick of him being a head coach. I think it's one of those where he's been kind of groomed to be that head coach, and I think it was stated that he was it was written into his contract that he would kind of surpass and take that head coaching job once Belichick was either fired or stepped down or what have you. But I like it, but at the same time, I think they sold themselves short a little bit by not interviewing somebody like Vrabel. Just seeing what he could bring to the Patriots. That being said, I never mind when a team hires internally, and if they like somebody like him, then why not give him the reins to or the keys to the kingdom and let him go. So
The only thing I would have to say on it is this is what I generally take as a sign of a good organization. And what I mean by that is when news like this is kept internal, it's generally a good sign that things are functioning well within the walls. So the fact that this was clearly planned out well before any of us or the general media could get access to this, because if any of us knew about that, no one would have been questioning who was going to get hired with the Patriots. So
exactly.
I do have to give kudos for them. Like, it's always better to have this stuff stay internal. It always can get messy and get loud. And you just look at what happened with the Dolphins years back with their coaching situations. It's just always better to keep these things internal. So we'll see how it goes. I am with you a little interesting, considering I think there's some very good coaching candidates out there. So passing the reins to someone who hasn't had a head coaching job before it's a little interesting. But he's been internal with the Patriots his whole career. So if anyone's going to carry on the Belichick legacy, it'll be him. And other players have come out and said that when they played with Mayo on the Patriots, that he was basically Belichick 2.0. So I think it'll work out for them. We'll see how it goes. They don't seem to be wanting to do a complete culture change, so to speak. So it's going to be more of the same Belichick culture, and we'll see if they can turn things around. And I think outside of that, keep going.
Sorry to say, I think when you have that culture, right, that's worked for 20 plus years, right, where they had that winning culture, that no nonsense, next guy up. I think that's smart, and it's proven right for the Patriots. Like that's the winning mentality. That's the winning way. So I don't hate that at all.
Yeah, I think it's something that teams definitely want. It's something that the Steelers have shown that they are very good at, and it works. If you can keep the same culture and just bring in the next man up, it's definitely beneficial. So we'll see how it goes. And speaking of Steelers, I'm hoping you saw what Tomlin did the other day. That was quite funny. In case anyone missed it, it was right after the Steelers loss. He was a little heated. And was asked about his contract situation. For anyone who doesn't know, he is under contract for next year. So it's not that his contract was expiring, but there were just rumors circulating that he might retire or take a year off. Well, immediately when asked what he's going to do with his contract, he left the press conference and did not answer the question. But he came out today saying that he is going to coach next season, so it's not a big deal. But just a good old laugh from Tomlin there.
Yeah, I found that funny, right? Because you literally could have just nipped that right in the bud, just being like, "I'm under contract for next year," and that's it. Instead of just walking off like that, and then having the speculation and even more rumors of like, "Oh, is he not gonna come back? Is he gonna leave? Like, what's happening?" Um, so I thought that was kind of funny and something that he could have avoided a little bit.
Yeah, definitely could avoid it. Probably wasn't the best move in the world, but I don't think anyone outside of the people who were circulating the rumors thought that he was going to leave. He's
So
definitely
so
not on the downturn, at least in
so
my
here's a
mind.
question for you, right? He's been a Steelers head coach for 10 plus years, right? If I'm not mistaken.
His whole
So
coaching career.
he's made the playoffs. I think that's what it was, or seeing where he's made the playoffs for like 10 seasons or whatever. He's always had a winning record, right, with them, or above 500. Is there a point where do you think either he leaves, or do you think there's a point next year if they don't have? Because I feel like this was a down year for the Patriots or for the Steelers, right? So do you think that the owner right there might move into a different direction, right? Because really outside of, I feel like they've kind of had some bad seasons, even though they've made the playoffs, right? The the Steeler way really hasn't been that strong the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you lose a franchise quarterback, and not just a franchise quarterback, a
Mm-hmm.
Hall of Fame quarterback. So that's a difficult transition in general. And in general, the Steelers have had to deal with a team that had such an identified culture in the NFL that had to completely change with the recent culture change of the NFL as the league's gone more towards a passing league. We've seen the culture of the Steelers change. You could even say the same thing about the Patriots. It's
Yeah.
becoming less and less about defense and more about can you get that gunslinger back there to win you games. But in general, I don't think they're going to move away from Tomlin. I mean, I get that there have been some down years. We haven't been the dominating force of recent years, but
Yep.
at the end of the day, you can still win a Super Bowl as a wild card. So
Yeah.
all that really matters at the end of the day is step one, make the playoffs. And
Yep.
if there's one thing that Tomlin has proven that he can do is he can get that team to the playoffs. Did anyone think that the Steelers were going to beat the Bills this weekend? No.
Yeah. No.
Uh,
There.
the only hope that they had was if that game was played on Sunday in the middle of the
Yep.
snowstorm, then maybe. But going to
Yeah.
move on. I mean,
I
you got to
was
take go.
good.
Yeah, it's just you take your winning seasons, you go to the playoffs, and it's great. I mean, his wasn't his first Super Bowl, but Bill Cowher's Super Bowl with the Steelers, which was years ago, back in 2000, I believe it was 2005. And that was Ben's second season in the NFL. Ben was not a great passer, did it on the back of Jerome Bettis, went into the playoffs with an 8-6 record as a wild card. That was not 8-6, 8-7, back when the season was a little shorter, game shorter, but that's the point. They ran the table as a wild card, so you're still looking at teams. I mean, we'll get there once we get into the scores. Not a lot of dominant teams looking right now. A wild card team could definitely win it
Yeah.
this year. So I think you're got to be satisfied with winning records in playoffs, and if you get the Super Bowl on top of that, it's great. But in terms of culture and everything there, just keep it going.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree. I think there's some other news, right? With I saw today that Belichick apparently is going to meet again with um, Atlanta Falcons head front office. He met with Arthur Blank apparently earlier this week on his yacht or whatever. So that's looking like Belichick might go there. What are your thoughts on Atlanta and Belichick?
Yeah, we'll just cover the rest of the head coaches now because Vrabel's also made this coaching round, and so has
Mm-hmm.
Harbaugh. So the names that you were expecting are the three names that have been
Yep.
really meeting with teams. Seems like they're going to be the first dominoes to fall before teams really make a move on a head coach. But I don't know if I love the fit of Belichick with Atlanta. I do still think that Atlanta is probably the most outside of the Chargers, might be the most
Yeah.
appealing head coaching opportunity just because of the offensive weapons. But I don't label Belichick as this offensive mind that I feel like Atlanta should be looking for. If I was them, I'd be leaning more towards Harbaugh. Um, I think a better fit for Belichick, as we talked about last week, would probably be the Chargers. He would have,
Hmm.
I mean, if he wants full control, I feel like the Chargers would give it to him, give him roster control, the whole 9 yards. And I just think that would be a better fit for him. I don't have faith in Belichick bringing in a young quarterback and developing him in Atlanta. Whereas if he went to the Chargers, he doesn't really have to develop Herbert as much, but he could focus on that defense where the Chargers have really been lacking in recent years. What do you think?
Yeah. So I think it's depending on how you look at it, right? So if Atlanta's looking for somebody that can coach a team, I think Belichick is the guy, right? So you can bring in those offensive coordinators, right? And he can just manage everything in general. So I think it's a good fit if they have an offensive coordinator lined up. They know who, Belichick knows who he would want to go to, right? Obviously, if you bring in Patricia, something like that, then it's going to be awful, right? A guy that he had as his offensive coordinator, who that was really a defensive guy. So I think that's something to look out at. If Belichick does get hired as the head coach, who he brings in as his offensive coordinator to work with these young guys and that offense, because that offense is talented, right? Or it can be talented, right? With Bijan Robinson, with Kyle Pitts, with Drake London, stuff like that. They have the talent there. So I think it just depends who that guy they bring in, right, is, to work with their young quarterbacks, and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how everything else, shapes up. Last one I wanted to kind of touch on, and I know it was already mentioned this week that, his job security is fine, but Nick Sirianni, what do you think about that? Do you think, he's got a short leash going into next season? Or do you think he's fine for a little bit?
This one is tough, and the reason why I would like to say it's tough is first you got to look at the numbers for Jalen Hurts this season.
Yep.
If anyone remembers, I believe his touchdown intercept ratio was like 25 touchdowns to like 13 picks. That's the same touchdown interception ratio that Dak Prescott had last year when everyone was basically saying that he is not a good quarterback. So what I'm trying to get at is here, if you look at the other numbers, rushing yards for Jalen Hurts, he had his longest rush of the season was 24 yards. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
For a quote unquote quarterback that's supposed to be able to run, only had one rush over
Yep.
20 yards on the entire season. If you look at his 15 rushing touchdowns, 13 of them came from within the 1 yard line. So only 2 rushing touchdowns outside of tush pushes, basically. What I'm saying is, I think Jalen Hurts was much more injured than has been let on
Yeah.
in recent weeks. This
I
always
also
happens at the end of the season. You always find out that someone's been hurt much more than anyone else, but it's really kind of, I mean, they also had a bunch of injuries on the defensive side, but
mhm.
just from a standpoint, like an absolute collapse. And maybe it's the league's figured things out, which also happens. It happens a lot. Sometimes teams can just figure something out, and then it's a copycat league. So once one team figures it out, everyone else follows suit. And maybe people have just figured out the Eagles' offense, but also, I mean, they didn't have A.J. Brown out there this past weekend. So a lot of different things, but definitely still a disappointing performance in terms of
Yeah.
where I think he's going to be head coaching next year. I don't think you can let him go. But I think what was made much more clear was who was the offensive coordinator? Shane Steichen, right? He went to the
Yep.
Colts. I think
Yep.
what's much more evident is how large of a role he had in that offense last year versus this year. I don't think you get rid of Sirianni. You have to acknowledge that you're still a winning football team.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is Philly. So the minor disappointments are much greater in that city. So you never
It's
know. I
twofold.
wouldn't let him go. I would ride true until you truly have a losing season. Because, I mean, yes, this was a disappointment, but with all the injuries they had going into the playoffs and how much they stumbled going into it, I didn't think the expectations were that high going into the playoffs, but
Mhm.
definitely
Yeah,
still
I mean,
disappointing, but I think he sticks around.
yeah, I mean the way they ended, right? Going was it losing 6 of their last 7, something like that, right? I think every Philly fan could tell you that they were not too hopeful, right, for these playoffs. I think most expected to beat Tampa and then to get kind of smoked, in the next round. But yeah, I think it definitely was a bigger blow to that team losing Steichen and their defensive coordinator too that they lost last year too. So um, it's amazing when you see these guys leave for head coaching jobs, how much some of these offenses actually truly miss them, and how good good of minds they are. Um, and since we're kind of getting into this Philly talk, against the Bucks, saw a lot of screens in that game, and I feel like there was that joke um, of they've thrown like I saw on Twitter where it's like they threw like 400 screen passes this year or something like that, like something like ridiculous, just because Hurts wasn't throwing the ball downfield as much. Um, what do you think
That
of
to me
that
is a
game?
rib injury, is what I would
Yeah,
guess. It's the
it
same
could
thing
be.
that
Yeah,
happened to Herbert last year. Herbert, once he got hurt in like week 4 or 5, the ball was just not going downfield. Throwing the ball downfield with a hurt rib is very difficult. And I would not be shocked
yeah,
if we saw something in the next couple of days that shows that Hurts had another injury outside just his finger.
yeah. Um, so Eagles at Bucks, right? Eagles go down, 32-9. I feel like this game really wasn't even a contest all that much. The Bucks played great. Mayfield with the 3 touchdowns. The defense, I mean, was it Levante David, right? If I'm
Yeah, you're
remembering
right.
right, like lights out, played amazing. Um, I mean, is do you think Tampa can be a force playing the Lions next week? What are you thinking?
We'll see. I mean, this is kind of I did call this. I expected this from the Bucks. The
Yeah.
way that Baker's been playing and how many injuries the Eagles had in their secondary on their defense. I was expecting 32 points from the Bucks. I was also expecting at least 25 points from the Eagles, which did not happen. But in terms of the offensive output from the Bucks, this is pretty much what I expect with how well they're clicking on offense. I think you have to be realizing that Buccaneers are going to put up 25, 30 points a game
Mm-hmm.
right now. Their big question is their defense, but it really stepped up big for them in this one. So
Yeah.
kudos to them. I'm a big Baker truther. I think when you have a quarterback that at least
Mm-hmm.
is good enough in the NFL, you have to stick with it. I know
Yep.
everyone wants to find the Mahomes, and it's just so hard to find.
It's a unicorn. It's a
Once you get
unicorn.
one that's good enough, you got to stick with it. And I think
Yeah.
you put Baker in the category of like the Jared Goffs of the world. They're not amazing, but they are good enough to lead a franchise
Yep.
maybe to a Super
I
Bowl. We'll
agree.
see. But outside of this game, let's loop back up to the top, go
Yeah.
over these games real quick. So we'll start off. We had Browns, Texans, and Texans take care of business in this one, 45-14. Kind of felt like the Flacco magic died a little bit. The one
Yeah. He
play
came
for
back down to
me,
earth.
he did, but the one play for me that encompassed this game and also, in my mind, sealed up Coach of the Year for D'Amico Ryan. I don't know if you saw the clip right
Yep.
before their linebacker made that second interception, the pick six on Flacco. D'Amico Ryan is on the sideline with him
Mm-hmm.
with the iPad, telling him exactly what to do the next time
Yep.
that play happens, and it worked perfectly. So to
Yeah, that's
me,
pretty cool.
after this game, I think Coach of the Year is wrapped up. That's the one thing I needed to see. D'Amico Ryan wins hands down, but in general, I'm happy for the Texans. What do you think of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I thought kind of like what I was saying last week. I thought Flacco would come back down to earth. I did think the Browns defense wouldn't blow up the way it did. I mean, obviously there were two pick sixes in that
Two pick
game.
sixes, so you got a minus
That
14
that
points in terms of what they
that
allowed.
definitely
So
definitely inflated it, that a little bit. But I mean, the Browns defense just was atrocious though. Stroud, I thought, played pretty well. He got lucky on the one ball where he threw it, and then the defender and the wide receiver kind of collided with each other, and the defender ended up dropping the pass, or dropping the ball for an interception. But yeah, the impressive win for the Texans. Like you said, awesome clip seeing D'Amico Ryans, say that, and the his linebacker, jumping that route and stuff like that. It's interesting to see kind of where the Browns go from here. Obviously, your starting quarterback next year is Deshaun Watson with what you're paying him. But it was a cool little storyline, having Flacco kind of jump in and play good ball the way he did this whole season. It's unfortunate that he kind of threw a stinker this game, because I think the Browns could have been a team to be reckoned with, in these playoffs. But it's one of those where one bad game, right? And so it'll be interesting next week with the Texans and who they're playing. So
All right, next up we had Dolphins Chiefs, and this one was cold to say the least. And Chiefs won 26-7. So the Dolphins on the season, one win against a team with a winning record. So
yes.
I don't really have much to go into this game. If you watched it, it wasn't a great game. The Chiefs played okay, like pretty good.
Yep.
They did what they needed to do. It's a cold game. They rode Isaiah Pacheco and he took him to victory, which is what you need to do in these cold weather games. Yep. But thing I really want to talk about real quick is, which collapse was worse, Dolphins or Eagles?
Eagles by far. No, I will say the Eagles, because going losing 6 of their last 7, massive blow for them. A team that was looking, I think they were 10-2, 10-1, something like that, right?
I believe they were 10-1 or 10-0.
Yeah, so that's huge. And you could just see the decline just week after week with them. The Dolphins, I think is a pretty big collapse too, because I think if they secure home field advantage, they're maybe going on to the next round potentially, right? But I think the Eagles collapse is a little bit more like, oh wow, like they imploded.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Only because if you look at the narrative of the two teams, the Dolphins narrative, I think maybe for a week or two they had the narrative that they were the best team in the NFL, but the Eagles carried that narrative for, as we said, about 10 weeks or so. And the Dolphins narrative the whole season was exactly what we saw here, that they couldn't beat good teams, and they still can't beat good teams. So I don't really see them as a collapse, but more of a, they now have a monkey on their back. They got to start beating some teams with above 500 records, or this is just going to be the new narrative for the Miami Dolphins. All right. Well, next up, probably the most surprising blowout of the weekend. This game was over by halftime. We had the Cowboys-Packers. Packers jump out early, up 27-0 at half. They win this one 48-32. We're talking about narratives that the Dolphins can't beat good teams. We'll talk about another narrative that the Cowboys don't know how to win a playoff game.
Yeah, this one, I wasn't able to watch, the entire game. We were at a birthday party, but I was looking at my phone, glancing at just the scores in the first half as they were coming out. I was like, holy, like crap! How are the Packers doing this? It's, talking about a team in the Cowboys that like can be so dominant, and then it's like they have a brain fart sometimes, and their defense, just is awful. Sometimes their offense can't score. Prescott, right, throwing picks after he had a really good regular season. this is something that I thought was interesting in head coaching, or for the head coach Mike McCarthy, that he wasn't on the hot seat at all with Jerry Jones. Um, this is a team that had high aspirations, 8-0 at home, and just laid an egg against the Packers. And Jordan Love has had a great season. I think he's actually gonna have a decent game next week, or I should say, this Saturday. Um, but yeah, I think this is more of a Cowboys collapse. This game. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I agree. Like Mike McCarthy might be on the hot seat, but once again, this is more of just Jerry Jones putting him on the hot seat. Like I don't think Mike McCarthy
Yeah.
should be on the hot seat. I'm not going to put this loss on him. If you want the real turning point of the Cowboys season after they started what was 2-2, winning their first two and then losing their next two, if they did not start taking off until CeeDee Lamb actually met with Mike McCarthy and was like, "You need to get me the ball." And then once they
Hmm.
started doing that, the offense was off and running. But Dak was bad, to say the least, real
Yeah.
bad. I mean, he had a pick six on like the second possession in just a ball that should not have been thrown. You don't
Yep.
throw that type of pass when you're 10 yards away from your own end zone. But I don't know. There's something that brings me joy watching the Cowboys lose in the first
Oh,
round of the
it's
playoffs every year.
especially the way that they lost too, just getting whomped at home. And it was even
Like not even
funnier too,
close.
seeing Aaron Jones, have racking up the yards that he did, and the touchdowns, especially when McCarthy was in Green Bay with him. He wouldn't really play Jones as much. And it's like he's
Oh yeah.
lights out amazing, and you're not utilizing him. Um, you mentioned the CeeDee Lamb thing, and that just kind of dumbfounding to me that CeeDee Lamb had to go to his head coach. Like, how do you not know CeeDee Lamb is your best guy? And like,
Yeah. I mean,
why are you not force feeding him the ball?
it also turned around Dak's season too. Dak in the first 4 or 5 games of the season was averaging 212 yards passing the game. After
Yeah,
CeeDee Lamb
that's
talks to Mike McCarthy, he averages 285 for the rest of the season. It's like,
yeah. So
no,
that's
duh. Getting the ball to your best player is a good idea.
I say that's the concerning thing to me, and especially as a head coach, right? You need your best player to tell you to get in the ball. It's like what happened in Atlanta with Bijan, right? And even with Kyle Pitts, those are two dynamic guys, right? Kyle Pitts has uh, been nowhere to be found because he doesn't get the ball, and Bijan Robinson, should have had a better season than he did because, but yeah, getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah,
Want to go to the next game,
interested to
Rams
see what.
Lions?
Oh yeah, the only good game of the weekend, and I'm glad it was this one because I did think this one was going to be more high scoring than it was, but
Mm-hmm.
there's got to be something so sweet. Did you? Well, before we go any farther, Lions win this one 24-23. Great game, head to toe. And I
Yep.
think the best quote from this game was the post game locker room press or conference. And because the narrative when Goff got traded to the Lions was the Rams did not think he was good enough to win them a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So all that was said in by Dan Campbell in the locker room gave Jared Goff the game ball and said, "You're good enough for Detroit." And I love that.
Let's go.
Love that.
That's good.
I'm full teams Lions from here on out. I want to see him go all the way. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, awesome showdown. I mean, when the Lions went up 14, I think it was 14-0. Um, at the start of that first half or that first quarter, I was like, "Ooh, could this really be a potential blowout?" And then the scoring kind of evened out. Um, I think a big key was Kerwin Williams not being as effective or getting the ball as much rushing. He had like 50 yards or something like that. So um, Puka Nakua still is fantastic. He had like almost 200 yards or something like that. But yeah, I feel like this was a destiny type game, right, for the Lions, where they've haven't won a playoff game in however many years it was. I think it was the 90s, right? And for them to win it the way they did, it's pretty cool, especially playing Stafford and all that stuff. So
All right. Last game. This game was pretty much what everyone expected. We had Steelers, Bills. Gets
yep,
postponed to Monday due to the weather. And that actually probably hurt the Steelers, as their only hope of beating the Bills was if they were to
yeah,
play in the weather. But Bills take care of business. They win 31-17. It's not really much to comment on this game. It went pretty much as expected. Steelers offense didn't look terrible.
no,
17 points, pretty much all you can expect from the Steelers right now, unfortunately. Needed some big plays from the defense, didn't get them. The one thing I want to take away from this game is we got to figure out the slide rule for quarterbacks.
yeah, I agree. That
That's the only thing
it's
I took from this game. I don't know if anyone out there watched, but particularly it happened on Josh Allen's big 64-yard run for a
yep.
touchdown. He looks like he's about to slide. And right before he's about to slide, I will say he doesn't actually get into the sliding motion, but he literally slows
He,
down,
d-
leans
he does the stutter
forward like
step.
he's about to slide. All the defense around him stops because if they touch him after that, it's probably a flag. And sure enough, he decides he's not going to slide, keeps going all the way for a touchdown. So,
He's somebody that does it so well too, where every time he does slide, it's so late and the defender's already engaging the tackle and like diving, and he I feel like he always gets these calls. And I think if it's something like that where if he's sliding and the defender's going at the same time, like that shouldn't be a flag, because they're both the defender's engaging and trying to make a tackle. The QB, I get it, right? He's making that late slide. But yeah, it's something that the NFL has to figure out, but I don't know if they can, honestly.
yeah, it's tough. I don't really know how they're going to do it. It's hard. It's hard to figure it out. I mean, I understand that the NFL wants to protect their quarterbacks. They're their babies. They make them the most
Yep.
money. That's what the fans are there for. But as a defensive player, it just got to drive you absolutely nuts. All right,
Yeah.
let's do a quick little preview of this round of games coming up this week. We'll do a quick over under. AJ, do you have the over unders for us
I
and the
I
point
I do
totals?
have the I do have the over unders and point totals, and I also have Billy's predictions.
Well, real
Um,
quick, give us a recap on how we did last weekend because I did really bad.
yeah. So, out of our over unders and spreads, I went 9-3. Billy went 6-6, and you, Brett, I'm sorry to say, went 3-9.
It was rough. It was rough out there. I
It was.
parlayed all those
But hey,
bets. Did not win a single one, so not great. All right,
rough
but let's
rough
start
weekend.
off. First game this weekend, we got Texans Ravens. What do we got lines?
So Texans Ravens. Houston is plus 9.5. And then the over under is 43.5.
I'm gonna stick with the Ravens on this one. I think they're
Okay.
gonna cover, and more importantly, I'm gonna take the over on this one. You know, Ravens had a week off. Um, way the Texans offense is looking right now, I don't think they're going to do what they did last week. It's not going to be 45 points, but 25 and then another 20 plus from the Ravens. Give me the Ravens to cover and the over.
I agree. I like the Ravens in this game. Um, I I don't think the Texans will have as much of the firepower that they did against the Browns. I think the Browns defense just kind of laid a stinker. Um, I will also go with the over on this as well. I think there's gonna be some points scored. Billy had Houston plus 9.5, and he picked the over on this.
So are you taking
The next set.
Ravens or Texans?
Sorry, I'm taking Ravens.
So you got Ravens in the over. All right.
Yep. And then Billy has Houston, and the over.
All
Next
right.
game on Saturday, that 8:15 game, 49ers versus Packers. I feel like this is going to be a great matchup. Personally, um, I might be crazy to say this and picking against my Super Bowl pick, but I kind of like the Packers and keeping it close. I don't know why. I think Jordan Love has played really great. So I like the Packers plus 9.5. And I do think it's going to be the under on this game. The over under is 50.5.
Okay, I'm going to go the same route there. I do think the Packers are going to be able to cover the spread, at least keep it close.
Mm-hmm.
But I got the over happening in this one. I just
Okay,
think when the 49ers offense is rolling, the Packers
that's fair.
offense is rolling right now, we're going to go with the Pack to cover and the over here.
I just think with this team in general, I do think having the bye kind of slows some teams down a little bit. So that's why I don't know why for this game I just feel like the under will hit. But we'll get into that Sunday slate now. That 3 p.m. game, Bucks Lions. The over under for that, Bucks are plus 6.5, and the over under is 49. What do you got?
I got the Lions to cover that. I'm taking the over as well. A lot of overs on this one. I just think the Lions offense is looking great right now. So is the Buccaneers offense. I would not be shocked if this hit a 60-point over. So give me the Lions and the over.
I like that as well. I will take the Lions minus 6.5, and I like that over. So I will go with that as well. Billy's picks from the last game, Packers 49ers. Billy picked the Niners minus 9.5 and the under. For the Lions, he picked for Lions Bucks, he picked the Lions minus 6.5 and the over as well.
All right, last one and the marquee matchup of the weekend. What's becoming our new Brady Manning matchup. We got Chiefs, Bills, Mahomes, Allen. I don't know what the spread is on this one, but I can't imagine it's more than 3 points.
Yeah, so the spread is, I was just texting Sam. The Chiefs are favored, or sorry, Chiefs are, Bills are favored minus 2.5.
Yep. So basically, home field is what we're playing for here.
Yep. And then over under is 45.5.
They haven't been playing well, but I'm going to take the Chiefs and the under on this one. I think this game gets a little sloppy, and I think Mahomes just has Allen's number. So I'm going to take
Ooh,
the Chiefs and
see,
the under.
I am going to go the opposite. I'm going to go Bills. I think this offense has figured it out. They're running on all cylinders, especially with Cook. I think he's been a great addition to that offense. I like the Bills minus 2.5, and I like that over. I think there's gonna be a lot of points scored in this. Billy had the Chiefs plus 2.5, and he had the over in it. So,
You
what
got
a
any
week!
trivia for us, sir?
I do have some trivia.
Oh,
This is gonna be an easy one since we were talking about this last game, Chiefs Bills. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen will be facing off for the 7th time in their young careers against each other. What is the record that they have between each other?
I want to say it's 4-3, and I think Allen
So
has
sorry,
the edge.
this is the 7th time this game coming
Oh,
up. So
this
they've
is
only
that.
played each other's. Yeah.
It might be 3-3, but I think there's a discrepancy because I think the Chiefs have won all the playoffs games and the Bills have won all the regular season.
So it is 3-3. Mahomes does have the edge in the playoffs as for being 2-0. So it'll be interesting. I think Allen gets the monkey off his back and beats Mahomes for this playoffs. It's gonna be a good slate of games. Just texting Sam that we're all set and ready to go. Brett, any closing thoughts?
No. Hopefully we get more than one good game this weekend. That's the hope.
I think we're gonna have some really competitive games. Like I said, I thought last weekend was pretty good. Just a lot of scoring, which is nice. So, but yeah, that's it from us. We'll be back next week. We'll more of the normal setup with Billy, myself, and Brett. This is Football Primetime.